My wife thought that she could run off on me, be with some rich dude and give her all the luxuries that she wanted. Well, I guess she didn't think about one thing. The country that she was whisked away to, well, it's not the same country that she grew up in, so the rules and the laws are not the same, and now she's stranded and she wants my help. I love my wife. Before we go anywhere else with this, I want that fact established. I love my wife, and I love my wife. Up until 2 days ago, I thought she loved me too. Maybe putting this online isn't the best course of action, but at this point I've tried contacting you on every other platform. So if Clara, if you're reading this, I know that you like reading these sorts of things, please call me, text me, leave me, just anything, a letter, I don't care. Just tell me that you're okay and that you really chose this. Maybe then I'll be able to understand. For those of you who have clicked on this post hoping for a little bit of entertainment, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I know this usually covers more petty issues, but I'm on here all the time, and honestly, at this point I would appreciate any kind of feedback, because I don't know who I can turn to at this point. I'm hurt. I'm worried. Maybe part of me's embarrassed, but more than anything, I just want my wife back. To catch you all up, a few months ago, my wife was up for a promotion at work. She's been working the same job at the same company for the longest time, which I won't be disclosing in the name of maintaining some semblance of privacy, despite bearing my heart out in this post and using my wife's actual name. She's always valued stability above all else, and her childhood could be best described as tumultuous. She was a military brat, with an unstable at best mother who spent all her youth being packed up into a box and shipped to the next base every time she began to put down some roots. When we met, she'd gotten herself to a college town as far away from her parents as she could be, and had decorated her dorm room so well that those homemaker shows on HGTV should have been taking notes. She made the college town her home, and though I'm sure she liked me for other reasons too, my being born and raised in that very same town probably contributed to her initial interest in me. I had roots there, roots that she always wanted. She took to the family like a fish to water, like a piece to a puzzle that we've never known was even missing. I mean, she fit in so well that some days I was pretty sure that they only invited me to dinner so I'd bring her along. My parents adored her. Being their only child, she became the daughter that they never had. My mother taught her all of the family recipes, and my dad helped her pack up her stuff at the end of the semester, and even my dog was nicer to her than he was to me. Those years of my life were some of the best. My whole family all in one place, happy, stable, and as every child does, I knew that my parents would not be around forever. But I thought that I'd found someone who would go through all this time with, you know? Well, when my mom passed, I think that Clara took it just as hard as I did. Her own mother had never been the poster child of motherhood, but through mine, Clara was able to build the bond that a girl can only ever have with a mom. Her funeral was hard on the two of us, but we made it through it all together. We'd lived really close to my childhood home since graduation, so visits to my dad's place became a more common thing after Mom passed. It wasn't uncommon for Clara to pop by while I was working or otherwise occupied just to keep him company. Much like my mom had been the mother that she never had, my dad was the father she always wanted. He doted on her like every good father should, and when she had the chance, she returned the favor tenfold. At every turn, it was so grateful to have her in my life. We've decided early on that we weren't going to have children until each of us were established in our careers, and we had 2 incomes to justify it. When the time did come, we'd have at least 2 to make sure that they would always have each other. We wanted a family, but we wanted to make sure that we had the resources to give them stability that her life had so sorely lacked in her youth. My parents knew as much, and though a part of me wished that my mother could have met her grandchild, I know that sticking to our timeline was what was best for our marriage. For what it's worth, at the time I believed that we were well on our way to the level of stability that Clara needed to be having a family. We were both doing well at work. We had a strong support system in our friends and my side of the family, and we loved each other. Well, Then my father got sick. I've been told by just about everybody just how common it is for widowers to suddenly fall sick in the wake of their spouse's death. I've been told by everyone that it was in no way my fault, that we could not have prevented it. At first, I wasn't willing to listen to any, even vaguely positive sentiments about the matter, but eventually I was able to find some comfort in those words. It wasn't our fault, and in a way it was inevitable. A son will outlive his father, and I have to live with that. Unfortunately, my father's sickness marked the beginning of the end for more than just his life. It was a well-known fact at this point, even internationally, that medical care in America is an extremely expensive ordeal. My father was insured, but there's only so far that insurance can take you. He was also retired without a pension, so Clara and I were covering the cost of just about everything. We both love him, though, so it was never a question, and even if I had not been in the equation, I chose to believe that Clara would not have done anything differently. As you can imagine, however, the medical bills were a big drain on us financially. We did not go into debt, but only just. We sold the house that we've bought together after graduation and moved into my childhood home. It was due to a multitude of reasons, but it came down to cost and keeping my dad comfortable. Clara especially did not want to rock his routine so late in life. She wanted to maintain a sense of stability for him, so sacrificed her own. When the virus rolled around, my father wasn't far from his deathbed. Being in the height of the lockdown, we could not visit him as often as we wanted, and when he caught a strain from within the hospital itself, we were barred from seeing him altogether. He died alone, in a hospital room less than 20 minutes from my home. It goes without saying that I was crushed, and Clara too. The family that she just had found in her college town had dwindled down in just the two of us much sooner than either of us ever imagined. The home she had spent years curating and decorating was sold to treat a man who died alone. With the lockdown, she was cut off from the network of friends that she had spent the years building. Sometime into that first lockdown, Clara ended up losing her job. Aside from isolating her from the last of her work friends, it also tightened our finances a fair bit. We'd gone from planning to expand our family to having none at all, without the resources to change that anytime soon. I knew this time was tough for her, and I did my best to be there for her in every way that I could. It was tough, but we made it through it all, like we always had together. Things started looking up when restrictions started lifting, and she was actually rehired at her job. I finally started to see her smile again, and I could tell that even those online meetings made her feel more connected to the life that she built for herself again. We've been rebuilding since, and our finances are getting better. We're definitely not at family planning levels yet, but we'll be there eventually, and I thought things were actually going well. So, a few months ago, Clara told me that she may be up for promotions at the end of the quarter. She'd been at this job forever, and the short stint during lockdown notwithstanding, so in my opinion, it was a long time coming. There's been other promotions in the past, but this one could really ramp up her career and shorten our timeline when it came to expanding our family. I was excited, and I knew that she was too. Naturally, she began spending longer days at work, taking up more networking opportunities, and just really putting herself out there for the promotion. She'd always been social, even with her colleagues, so this was not out of the ordinary in any way, but it was definitely ramped up. I tried to be as supportive as I could. I took up more chores around the house to even out the extra hours she was out. I made sure that she had a good breakfast and her favorite coffee each morning, and I did my best to be a good husband. I thought that I was. The past weekend, she went on a business trip with her direct boss, which she told me was a great sign for the upcoming promotion. I was excited for her. I loaded her bags into the car, kissing her goodbye, and headed to work myself. I knew that she would be back sometime on Sunday, so I had this whole roast dinner in mind that Mom used to make with her. I picked up the ingredients on Saturday and even made a playlist for the night. She texted me Saturday night that her flight had been overbooked and, well, she'd be back a day late. Well, it happens. Roast dinner on a Monday is fine by me. Considering I'd been working that day, I prepped everything on Sunday to make my life a bit easier. I was so looking forward to welcoming her back and celebrating potentially her promotion. Well, I woke up Monday morning and got dressed for work as usual. I headed out to the living room and found a stack of papers and an envelope on top of them. The envelope was addressed to me, but before I could even notice that, my attention was already on the stack of papers. Divorce papers, pre-signed by Clara. I eventually got around to reading the letter in the envelope, and somehow on a single page, my wife of 12 years told me that I could no longer provide the level of stability that she needed. So she had found someone who could. In a few words that it's taken me to write this post, she ended our marriage. Because I'd made enough money to make her feel safe, apparently it wasn't enough, and she no longer needed that in her life. I've tried to contact her in every way I know how. I've called, I've texted, I've emailed, I've done everything short of launching a missing persons report, and I don't know what else to do. I called her friends out of desperation just to know that my wife was still alive, and she informed me that Clara was alive and well on her way out of the country at this point. Maybe I sound pathetic, maybe I'm supposed to be angry, or some flavor of betrayal, but I just want my wife back. I mean, the chances of her reading this are slim to none, considering how many posts are on this website. But maybe someone she knows and is still in contact with will see this and show her. Please, Clara, just answer one call. Just tell me that you're okay, and tell me why you're doing this to me. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is a heartfelt drama. We do have a lot of issues we have not discussed yet, and don't worry, we're going to get to that in the upcoming comments. But let's go ahead before we jump into update number 1 and do check out one of the comments. This comment comes from I Love Puppy Dogs 702. I don't know what the letter said, but from what you've told us, you've got to know that she's probably cheated on you. Sudden promotion leading to more time to spend at work and weekend trips for unspecified conferences really points to an affair, buddy. Maybe I've just read too many of these cheating spouse posts on here and I'm projecting, but I really don't see any other way that your seemingly loving wife would completely flip the script on you unless she had something else lined up. I mean, especially since you saw that she values stability above all else. Maybe she was actually up for a promotion, maybe she wasn't, but I think it's likely, well, from what you've chosen to share with us about the letters, that she's probably left you for a richer dude. I really hope you find some way to find closure and make peace with this, but God knows I probably would not be able to. Update number 1. Hey, I'm not updating this post in hopes of getting through to my wife. I know that she's seen it, and I know that why she hasn't been in contact. Mostly I want to address some comments and provide a bit of additional context. To everybody telling me that she cheated on me, I'm well aware. I didn't write out the entirety of the letter that she left me, and not that there was a lot to write, but it was making more clear that she's been seeing her boss for some time now. The exact timeline is lost to me, but I imagine that the affair lines up with the news of her potential promotion. Point number 2. The promotion was actually real. I called her work, which I know a lot of people on here will be against, but for what it's worth, the person who answered the phone was a woman in HR, who I know Clara was acquainted with. She was under the impression that Clara was on a sick leave. So there was plenty of confusion to go around when I informed her of the letter and divorce papers I've received. Since then, I found out that Clara had been closer and closer to her boss ever since it was announced that she had another one of her coworkers running for a promotion. The boss in question isn't her direct superior, but a representative of another firm that her company has been working with that was leading the team that Clara was on. Apparently, he's some filthy, rich Middle Eastern businessman who's supposed the inheritance of his father's company and is making connections international to expand the business. He'd only been working with Clara's company for a few months, and the campaign that they were running together wrapped up just a few short weeks ago. This meant that there was no conference and their business together had been settled. And while Clara's possible promotion did take her performance on the campaign into account, it was not her primary focus. I couldn't really get anything more out of the HR lady, who told me that they would be investigating the matter themselves, whatever that entails. I did get in contact with the same friend who informed me that Clara had left the country again. She's never really my biggest fan, and I'm assuming because Clara had dated her brother early on in college before she dated me, and her friend has always wanted them to go back together. Her brother is married now, but she never really warmed up to me. She informed me that she'd shown Clara my post, and both of them were disappointed in me for airing out our private matters into a public forum. She told me that Clara's happier now than she ever was with me, and that she's finally free to live her life and start the family that she's always wanted without having to worry about making ends meet. So that's it. My wife ran away with her rich boss because I did not make enough money to start a family with her. I never planned for a future without her, so I'm at a loss. I mean, to everybody who saw this coming before I even told you in my original post, congratulations. My life is ruined, and I did not see it coming in the slightest. Update number 2. I never imagined updating this again because I never thought that I'd have an update that wasn't just as depressing play-by-play of what my life had become. I don't have a wife. I'll never have a family I imagined with her. What more is there to say? I'll be the first to admit that I did not react in the most productive of ways at first. I maxed out my sick leave. I wallowed in self-pity, and I looked at pictures of us together and I sobbed because, despite everything I now knew, I could not identify where I went wrong. I know that my father's medical bills ripped our finances apart, and I know that Clara valued her stability above much else, but I did not think things were ever bad enough for her to up and leave. But it's been a few months. I've spoken to the people who love me most in the world, and I've been working up to speaking to a professional to help me get through this. I've boxed up all her things, and even though they're still in the garage, not seeing them laying around the house both hurts and helps. I signed those divorce papers, and the terms were simple. It was a clean break despite everything else, and I've kept all of my premarital assets, which are really all I have anyways. She kept her car, but considering I don't even know where it is, I don't really care. However, none of this is the purpose of the update. I heard from Clara recently. It was indirect at first. Her friend, the same one in the previous update, called me. For the sake of convenience, we'll be referring to her as Stacy from now on. Stacy called to tell me that Clara needed my help, and if I've ever truly loved her, I would do whatever it took to help her. The gist of this is that Clara's currently stranded in a country in the Middle East with her new husband. In the same time since I've heard from her and signed our divorce papers, she's converted to Islam and married her rich boss. Unfortunately, instead of providing her stability in a family, he gave her sister wives. Clara was not his first wife at all. She wasn't the second or the third. She is his 7th wife. I don't think that's legal, even in the Middle East, but I'll admit that I haven't looked much into it. Clara managed to contact Stacy after months in the Middle East, constantly monitored by her sister wives, and asked her to get in touch with me, because she's accidentally deleted my number. She wanted out of the marriage and out of the Middle East, but she had no way of getting out by herself. The reason Stacy called me was to ask me to send money to Clara to get her back home. She said that if I stepped up now and showed Clara that I could be there for her despite everything, I would have had a chance of having the family I've always dreamt of. I know that Clara's aware of this post at this point, and I don't really care. I need someone sane and far removed from the situation to tell me what to do because I honestly do not know. I know this is stupid. I know I should ignore it and never speak to her again, but this is Clara, the woman that I've built my life and planned my future around. The woman who my parents love like a daughter. Even if I don't get my family back in the end, can I really leave her to fend for herself? I'm angrier than I've ever been at her, but I also still love her. What am I supposed to do? Update number 3. Hey guys, it's me again. So I've read through everything. I've read through all the comments, and, well, my last update, I've also spoken to actual people in my life instead of just relying on internet strangers. No offense. I don't know if everyone will agree with the course of action that I chose, but it was the best option that I could see at the time. At the advance of practically everyone I spoke to, and many of the comments left, I did not send any money. Not to Stacy, not to Clara. I was told that on the off chance that this was not a scam, sending the money could have its own disastrous consequences if Clara was trying to flee her new husband and the country. He or his family could retaliate against her if they discovered the money. And I wasn't familiar enough with the laws of the country that she's in to know if she'd have any protection against her, but I can only assume that any protection that's in place to protect women in those situations aren't very substantial. I'm not a monster, though, and regardless of everything that's happened since she left me divorce papers, there was a time when I loved Clara more than anything else in this world. I can't just ignore this situation. As much as people tell me my life would benefit from it. Maybe my life would be easier, but my conscience would never, ever recover. I contacted a few people who directed me to an embassy that could help with cases like Clara's. I won't go into too much detail here, because this is a public forum and I never know who's reading. But I've been told that progress is being made, and I'll be updated if and when there are any developments. It's likely that I won't choose to share those updates here for some time at least, but know that things are being done to help her. Regardless of those of you who want me to, well, leave her to rot. I've thought about it. I'm not proud of it, but I've definitely thought about just washing my hands of all this and just moving on with my life. I signed the divorce papers, I settled the separation of assets. Legally, I have no obligation to her, and I could just pretend that none of this is even happening. But every time I consider going down that path, no matter how brief or serious, I see flashes of my life with her. Her with my parents, quilting with my mother, making sure that my father got his steps in. The part of me that loves her is currently shadowed by the part of me that's so angry with her. But the part of me that loves my parents who loved until their last breath still remains. For them, more than for her, I'll see this through. I don't even know what else I can actually do to help. Truly, but for the daughter that she was to my parents, I'll do what they would have done. Don't expect an update for a while, if ever. Hopefully this all works out, but maybe it's better to just leave on this note. You know, in case it doesn't. Update number 4. It's been a while since my last update, but that was to be expected. This should be the final update to the post ever, and I'm honestly looking forward to putting this chapter of my life behind me. For reasons that will become evident as you read this, I've kept the details about the present day sparse, but I can shed some lights on what Clara went through while she was in the Middle East. First things first, Clara's back on US soil. That's about as much info as I'm willing to provide on that front, as I've been made aware that her husband's actively seeking her. In what capacity, I don't know, but I'm unwilling to involve or implicate myself further. She did get in contact with me upon her return. I think knowing that she's safe has allowed me to work past any feelings or worry of guilt surrounding the whole situation, and now I'm just left with the anger and betrayal. She's not doing well, as you can imagine, and a part of me is happy about that. The same part of me wants her to suffer for what she put me through, to face the consequence of the choices that she's made that I had to bail her out of. Her life will never be the same. Her precious stability is nowhere to be seen, and that same part of me thinks that this is exactly what she deserves. I've done my duty to my parents and made sure that she is, in the plainest definition of the word, safe. My obligation to her ended, and, well, when she left me. I see that now, and I intend to make that crystal clear. For those of you who are curious about what happened to her, she told me that after she left the country with her boss, having been promised a life of luxury in his home country, she arrived there and was taken to a ritzy apartment that we never could have dreamt of affording. He told her that he would speak to his parents about getting them married immediately, and later came back to tell her that she first needed to convert to Islam for her parents to bless the marriage. His father owned the business that gave him all his money, so his approval was very important. He assured her that she was free to practice whatever she wanted, but she needed to be Muslim on paper for the wedding to happen. So she converted, and they got married a week later. He took her to his family home to meet what she thought would be his family, but ended up being his 6 other wives. I've since looked it up. It's not legal in his country either. Apparently forced a limit, yet Clara was lucky number 7. As you can imagine, she immediately started looking for a way out, but considering she's just married the man and had no assets to her name in that country, she was trapped. She could not even contact me directly as she's no longer having my number, and one of the other wives was always watching her like a hawk. Getting through to Stacy had been nothing short of a miracle. Well, apparently, and she had to work extremely hard to make sure that her escape plan was not discovered. The rest of what happened is more or less covered in the previous update, so I won't bother getting into that. To be honest, I can't really wrap my head around when this became my life. A while ago, I was just some regular guy with a loving wife and a future planned out ahead of me. Now I'm still just some guy, but somehow everything else around me has gone insane. I have no interest in having any further contact with Clara, and I'm just looking forward to moving on with my life now that it's all settled. Thank you for reading and commenting, but please stop DMing me for names and sending me all these horrible messages. I would never hate somebody's religion. Just because my wife left me for that, I just want to move on. Final update. Hello, I know I said that I would never update this again and that I wanted to move on with my life, and I think I have. But for some reason, I'd still get the occasional direct message about my original post, so I figured that I'd finally lay out the remaining questions. Yes, Clara's back in the US. No, I don't know where. She asked to meet up a few times and I declined it. I told her that she was welcome to send a friend to come and get her stuff, but I wasn't willing to see her again. Unfortunately, she decided not to respect that and just showed up at my door to beg for forgiveness. To make a long and emotional story short, I asked her to leave. She went so far as to get down on her knees and ask me to get her back, even bowing for my forgiveness, which I've never seen anyone do before. We're not together, and I asked her to leave and informed her that I would contact the authorities if she didn't. I want to say that it was hard of a decision to make, but I stand by my position in my previous update. Once I knew she was safe, I stopped caring. She could go back to her new husband, for all I care at this point. She made her bed, now she has to lie in it. To my knowledge, she doesn't have anything to her name besides her car. She's obviously lost her job. She's lived with me since college, so she doesn't have a home. And her only real option left is to turn to her mother, who she hasn't spoken to since freshman year. I found some closure in the fact that even my life was completely derailed by her decision. Her life was completely ruined. Yeah, as horrible as it sounds, it really does make me feel better. Maybe that makes me a bad person. I really don't care at this point. I have my friends, I have my job, and I have my home. That's more than she'll be able to say for herself for a while at the very least. Alright, so I was reading quite a few of comments on this story because it did have a lot of different people with different opinions, and a lot of people were arguing in the comments section, so I just want to ask you guys, what do you think of this story? Here's the first question. Do you think that OP, deep down inside, had any responsibility to go and rescue her, like he said he had to because she was so close to his late mom and dad? That was his justification, but there were other commenters who were saying, you don't owe this girl anything. She clearly left you. She doesn't want to be with you. She just wants to go after the money, and look where she found herself wound up at. So guys, let me know your thoughts directly down below in the comment section. I would love to discuss this story with you. It is kind of a heated debate, but let's get down to talking. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every day. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.